everyone, welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode because we're diving into something that can really change the game for real estate investors. PropTech apps.
Absolutely, Sarah. I mean, with technology evolving so quickly, these apps can really help streamline the investment process, right?
Exactly. We're going to explore some essential apps that every investor over 40 should consider, like how they can help you analyze properties, manage your investments, and even keep track of your finances.
And we'll also discuss how these tools can save you time and help you make better decisions. It's all about working smarter, not harder, especially when you're looking to build long-term wealth.
Yes, and for those who might feel a bit overwhelmed by technology, don't worry. We'll break it down into simple, practical steps that you can easily follow.
Right. And we'll share some personal experiences along the way. So listeners, whether you're just starting out or you've been investing for a while, there's something in this episode for you.
So let's jump right in. We'll kick things off with our first app. Mike, what's the first one you think investors should check out?
So, Sarah, when we talk about PropTech apps, it's not just about convenience. It's really about empowerment, especially for folks over 40. I mean, retirement timelines are looming, and the landscape is changing rapidly.
Absolutely, Mike. It can feel a bit overwhelming sometimes, right? But using these tools can actually help ease that stress. Like, take inflation. It's a real concern right now.
Exactly. And with inflation on the rise, the value of cash savings can diminish quickly. Real estate, when managed well, tends to appreciate over time. It can be a solid hedge against that inflation.
Right, and I've heard so many stories from people who've used apps to track their property values and rental incomes. It's like they finally feel in control of their investment journey,
Yeah, I remember speaking with a client, let's call him Tom. He's in his early 50s and worried about retirement. He started using a property management app to help oversee his rental properties.
That's a smart move. It must have given him peace of mind.
For sure. So he could see real-time data about his rentals, expenses, and even tenant communications. It took a lot of the guesswork out of the equation. He told me it felt like he had a personal assistant, which relieved a lot of his anxiety about managing multiple properties.
I can imagine. And it's not just about managing properties. But what about the market shifts?
Exactly. The market is so dynamic these days, and a lot of people over 40 are starting to think about wealth transfer to their families. They want to ensure that their assets are not just maintained, but are actively growing.
Right. And these apps can provide insights into market trends, helping investors make informed decisions. Like if they're considering selling or holding onto a property for a bit longer.
Yeah, I had another client, let's call her Lisa. She was considering selling her family home to downsize, but through an app, she was able to analyze the current market conditions and realized it was better to hold on to it a bit longer.
That sounds wise. So she was able to make a data-driven decision, rather than one based on emotion.
Exactly. And that's the key. Many times, decisions are clouded by emotions. But having that data at your fingertips, it creates a more rational approach to investing.
And speaking of emotions, how important is it for people in this age group to feel financially secure?
It's huge, Sarah. As we age, financial security becomes tied to our peace of mind. We want to know that our investments are working for us and not against us.
Right, and that sense of security can really help when it comes to planning for those golden years.
Absolutely. And think about it. These apps can help visualize financial goals. You can set targets for retirement savings, or how much you want to leave for your kids.
Oh, that's a great point. I've seen apps that allow users to track not just their current holdings, but also project future gains based on different scenarios.
Yes, and that forward-thinking approach is crucial. If you can see potential growth, it fuels motivation. It's like, okay, I can actually achieve this.
And knowing you have a plan in place can reduce anxiety, too. I mean, who wouldn't want to sleep better at night knowing they're on track?
Exactly. And let's not forget about the current economic trends. With interest rates fluctuating, these apps can give insights on financing options or refinancing existing loans.
That's true. A lot of people don't realize how much they could save by refinancing at a lower rate.
Right. And for someone over 40, every dollar saved on a mortgage can be a dollar that goes toward their retirement fund or toward their kids' education.
It's all interconnected. Plus, using these tools can also help them make those crucial connections with other investors or professionals in the field.
Yes, networking is vital. A lot of these apps have community features where users can share experiences, tips, and even investment opportunities.
That's such a valuable resource. Learning from others who are in similar situations can make a big difference.
It really can. A sense of community can sometimes be the encouragement someone needs to take that next step in their investment journey.
Exactly. Plus, it can help dispel some of that fear of the unknown, especially for those who might feel like they're starting late in the game.
Yes, and many people don't realize that it's really never too late to start investing. With the right tools and mindset, you can still build significant wealth.
And that's what we want to emphasize here, isn't it? That it's about making informed decisions, taking control, and using technology to facilitate that process.
Absolutely. So as we transition into discussing some core strategies, let's keep in mind how these apps can guide us in making those informed choices, whether it's about managing properties, understanding market trends, or planning for the future.
Yes, let's dive into those strategies.
So let's dive into some of these core strategies, starting with the tools that can really help investors, especially when they're looking at properties. You know, there are some fantastic PropTech apps out there that can simplify the process.
Right, and I think the first thing that comes to mind is the 1% rule. It's such a simple yet effective guideline. Can you break that down a bit for our listeners?
Sure. The 1% rule suggests that the monthly rent you can charge for a property should be at least 1% of the purchase price. So if you buy a property for, say, $200,000, you'd want to aim for a rent of about $2,000 per month. It's a quick way to gauge whether an investment could be worthwhile.
That's really helpful. But I guess it's not the only thing to consider, right?
Exactly. You can't just rely on that one rule. You also want to look at the 50% rule, which is about estimating your expenses. Essentially, you should expect that about 50% of your rental income will go towards operating expenses, like maintenance, property management, and taxes. So if you're bringing in $2,000 a month, you might be spending around $1,000 on those costs.
That makes sense. So if we take that example of the $200,000 property again, after accounting for those expenses, you'd still be left with about $1,000?
Exactly. And that's before considering your mortgage payment. So if your mortgage is, say, $800 a month, you'd end up with $200 in cash flow. It's not a huge amount, but it's positive cash flow, which is always a good sign.
Right. Positive cash flow is key. Now, speaking of numbers, how about cap rates? Can you explain that for our listeners?
Sure. The capitalization rate, or cap rate, is another important metric. It's calculated by taking the property's net operating income, NOI, and dividing it by the property's current market value. So if your property has an NOI of $24,000 a year and it's worth $300,000, your cap rate would be, 8%?
Yeah, that sounds right. So an 8% cap rate would indicate a strong investment, right?
Exactly. Generally, a cap rate of 8% or more is considered good, but it does depend on the market. Higher cap rates can indicate more risk, while lower rates might mean a more stable investment. It's all about balancing risk and reward.
That's a good point. And I suppose it's also important to think about the deal evaluation checklist before jumping into anything.
Definitely. Having a checklist can save you from making emotional decisions. You'd want to consider factors like the property's condition, location, potential for appreciation, and the local rental market.
And maybe even the neighborhood amenities too, right?
Absolutely. Schools, parks, and public transport can make a big difference in rental demand. So when you evaluate a deal, you should also ask yourself questions like, what's my exit strategy? Are you planning to hold the property long-term or flip it for a quick profit?
Those are really important considerations. And it's also helpful to think about financing options.
Right, and there are a few different paths you can take. Conventional loans are common, but there's also hard money lending for those quick flips. Or even portfolio loans if you're looking to buy multiple properties.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people overlook creative financing options, like seller financing or lease options.
Exactly. Those can be fantastic tools, especially if you're just starting out or if traditional financing isn't an option. With seller financing, you negotiate directly with the seller for terms that work for both parties, which can really be beneficial.
And lease options can give you time to secure financing while controlling the property.
Right. You get to lock in a purchase price and potentially generate cash flow during the lease period. But of course, you need to make sure you understand the terms clearly.
So with all these strategies, it's clear that there's a lot to think about. But let's not forget the importance of knowing your market.
Absolutely. Understanding the local market trends is crucial. Are home prices rising? What's the rental demand like? You can use apps that provide real-time data on these trends, which can be a game changer.
Yeah, I love how technology can provide insights that were hard to come by before.
For sure. And that leads us to the importance of networking too. Connecting with local real estate groups or online forums can give you insider knowledge about the market.
And maybe even potential investment opportunities that aren't publicly listed yet?
Exactly. Sometimes the best deals come from personal connections. Plus, sharing experiences with others can help you avoid common pitfalls.
Speaking of pitfalls, what are some of the common mistakes you see investors make, especially those just starting out?
Well, one big mistake is underestimating expenses. Many new investors focus solely on the potential income without considering all the associated costs.
That can definitely lead to disappointment.
Right, and another mistake is not having a solid exit strategy. You should always know how you're going to get out of the investment, whether it's through selling, refinancing, or holding on to it long term.
Good advice. And I think we've all heard horror stories about investors who didn't do their due diligence before buying a property.
Absolutely. Always do your homework. Make sure you understand the property's history, any zoning issues, and local market conditions.
It really comes down to being informed and having a solid plan in place.
Exactly. That way you're setting yourself up for success in the long run. You know, Sarah, one of the most common pitfalls I see with investors, especially those getting into the game later in life, is over-leveraging. They get so excited about a potential property that they stretch their finances too thin.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's easy to see a great opportunity and want to jump in with both feet, right? But what happens when they do that?
Exactly. I had a client a few years back. Let's call him Tom. He found a fantastic property that he thought would be a real gem, but he took out a loan for like 90% of the purchase price. He was so focused on the potential rental income that he didn't fully consider the other costs involved.
Wow, that sounds risky. What did he end up facing?
Well, as it turned out, the property needed a lot of unexpected repairs. Roof leaks, plumbing issues, you name it. When those expenses started piling up, Tom found himself in a tough spot. He could barely cover his mortgage payments, let alone the repairs.
So what's the lesson here? It sounds like a classic case of not accounting for all the costs.
Right. The key takeaway is to always have a buffer in your budget. I usually recommend aiming for a 20% down payment if you can swing it, to give yourself some breathing room. And always, always do a thorough inspection before buying.
That makes so much sense. And speaking of costs, what about bad tenants? That's another big issue, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen investors get burned by not thoroughly vetting their tenants. One client, let's call her Lisa, didn't do her due diligence. She was desperate to fill her rental property, so she rushed through the tenant screening process.
And that didn't end well, I assume?
Not at all. The tenant turned out to be a nightmare. Late on rent, damaging the property, and it took months to get them out. Lisa ended up facing significant repair costs and lost rental income during the eviction process.
Yikes! So what can investors do to avoid that situation?
You've got to be diligent in screening tenants. Always check references, look at their rental history, and if possible, run a credit check. It's also wise to meet them in person when you can. Gut feelings matter too.
That's such a good point. And what about cash flow? I feel like ignoring cash flow is a common mistake, especially for new investors.
Definitely, Sarah. Many investors get so caught up in the property's appreciation potential that they forget about cash flow. I had a mentee, let's call him Alex, who bought a property that looked great on paper but had terrible cash flow because of high monthly expenses.
So what was the issue there?
Well, he underestimated property management fees and didn't factor in maintenance costs properly. He thought he could just rely on the property appreciating over time, but when expenses kept draining his funds, he was in a real bind.
That's tough. How can someone avoid that pitfall?
You should always calculate cash flow before making a purchase. It's essential to know your gross rental income, subtract all expenses, and see what's left. If the numbers don't work, don't force it.
Absolutely. And then there's the timing of the market, right? So many people think they can time their investment perfectly.
Yeah, that's a classic trap. I had a friend who was convinced that he could predict the market's ups and downs. He waited for what he thought was the perfect moment to buy, but the market just kept climbing. Eventually, he missed out on a lot of good opportunities.
That's so frustrating. So what's the best strategy to avoid that?
Focus on the long term, rather than trying to time the market. Real estate is generally a long-game investment. If you find a property that meets your criteria and fits your strategy, it's better to jump in than to wait for what you think is the perfect moment.
And what about hidden costs? I imagine there are a lot of surprises lurking out there.
Oh, definitely. I can't stress this enough. Hidden costs can eat into your profits faster than you can imagine. I had a client, let's call her Emily, who bought a fixer-upper. She had a budget for renovations, but she overlooked things like permits, utility connections, and even property taxes.
So what ended up happening?
Well, those costs added up quickly, and Emily found herself over budget. She had to take out a personal loan just to finish the renovations, which really impacted her cash flow.
That's a tough lesson. How can investors prepare for these unexpected expenses?
It's crucial to do your homework. Always budget for a contingency fund. Anywhere from 10% to 20% of your renovation budget is a good rule of thumb. And factor in those hidden costs before you make the purchase.
So, in summary, it seems like doing thorough research and being financially prepared can help avoid these pitfalls, right?
Exactly. And it's all about being proactive. You want to spot those red flags early on. If something doesn't feel right or if the numbers don't add up, trust your instincts and dig deeper.
That's such great advice, Mike. And for anyone who finds themselves in one of these situations, there's always a way to pivot and recover, right?
Absolutely. It's all part of the learning process. The key is to take those lessons to heart and adjust your strategies moving forward.
Well, with that in mind, what would you say is the next step for someone looking to invest wisely in real estate?
Start by educating yourself. Read books, listen to podcasts, join local real estate groups, connect with seasoned investors and learn from their experiences. And remember, always keep an open mind and be willing to adapt your strategy as needed.
Such solid advice, Mike. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up this discussion.
Agreed. All right, so now that we've talked about PropTech apps, let's dive into some next steps and tools that you can use, like right now.
Yeah, I love that. What's the first thing people should do?
Well, I think starting with real estate listing apps is a must. Something like Zillow can be super helpful. You can, browse properties in your area, check out prices, and see what's on the market.
Right, and it really gives you a sense of the market trends, doesn't it?
Exactly. And then there's the Bigger Pockets calculator. If you're looking at potential investment properties, it's really handy for running the numbers. You can analyze cash flow, ROI, and all that good stuff.
That sounds pretty essential. Just being able to see the financial side of things, clearly laid out can make a big difference.
For sure. And if you're curious about rental prices in your area, Rentometer is another great tool. Just plug in an address, and it'll give you a report on rental rates nearby.
That's so helpful. It's like having a mini market analysis right at your fingertips.
Totally. And don't forget about your local MLS access. If you can get in touch with a real estate agent, they can often give you access to the multiple listing service, which has the most up-to-date listings.
Yeah, having that insider info can be a game changer.
Absolutely. And then, once you've got a few properties in mind, it's all about analyzing deals. I recommend setting a goal to analyze one deal per week. You can use those calculators we talked about just to get in the habit.
That's a smart way to build confidence, too. The more you analyze, the better you'll get at spotting great opportunities.
Exactly. And speaking of building confidence, joining a local real estate meetup can be invaluable. You can share experiences, ask questions.
and learn from others who are in the same boat. Networking is so crucial, right?
Yes, and don't underestimate the power of listening to podcasts or reading books on real estate investing. There's a ton of great content out there. I mean, Bigger Pockets has an amazing podcast that covers everything from beginner tips to advanced strategies.
I've heard great things about that. Any books you'd recommend?
Definitely. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki is a classic. It really shifts your mindset about money and investing. Also, the book on rental property investing by Brandon Turner is super practical.
Those are solid suggestions. It's all about educating yourself, right?
Exactly. And remember, start where you are. Even if you can only dedicate a small amount of time each week, or even just a few hours a month, it all adds up.
That's a great reminder. You don't have to dive in head first. Just take small, consistent steps.
Yes, and create a checklist for yourself. It could include things like researching properties, analyzing one deal a week, or attending a meetup. Just keep that list handy.
I love that idea. It gives you a clear path forward, which can be really motivating.
And don't forget to celebrate those small wins. Even if it's just finding a great deal or networking with someone new, it all matters.
Absolutely. Those small victories build momentum.
So with these tools in your pocket, you're ready to move forward. Let's recap what we've covered today. Well, Sarah, I think we really covered some great ground today with those PropTech apps.
Absolutely, Mike. It's amazing how technology can make such a difference in our investing journey, right?
For sure. So just to recap some key takeaways. First, having a good property management app can really streamline the way you handle your rentals.
Right, and it helps keep everything organized. Keeping track of finances and maintenance requests, it's a game changer.
And then we talked about market analysis tools, which are crucial for making informed decisions. Knowing the market trends can save you a lot of headaches down the line.
Definitely. And let's not forget about networking apps. Connecting with other investors can open up so many doors.
Yeah, building those relationships is vital. It's all about learning from one another.
Exactly. And lastly, we touched on investment tracking apps. Keeping tabs on your portfolio's performance helps you adjust your strategies as needed.
So true. It's all about adapting and growing your wealth over time. Remember, building wealth through real estate isn't a sprint, it's a marathon.
Well said. It's about making smart, consistent choices.
And for our listeners, if you found value in today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share your biggest takeaway or a question you might have in the comments.
Yes, and don't forget to share this episode with someone over 40 who might be looking to dive into property investing.
Next time, we'll be diving into some great tricks for using Zillow and Redfin as an investor, so stay tuned for that.
It's going to be packed with useful tips.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here. Until next time, happy investing.